it's Casey. Today, instead of making an art video, I'm making a crochet video. This is mostly for my ladies in the crochet club, but I decided to put this out for anyone to view in case you wanted to learn how to crochet. So we are going to start with some yarn. This is a worsted weight size 4 yarn. This is a Hirschner's brand, and you can see on the label here it says 4. That's a medium weight yarn. It tells you what hook size to use on the label. It really is just a guideline. This one says a size I hook. I'm going to use a K hook, 6.5 millimeter hook. Really, you can use any size hook that you want. It's just going to affect the size of your stitches. So this is the yarn I'm going to use. Yarns come in different weights, different materials. This is an acrylic. I pretty much mostly work with acrylic yarn just because it's cheap and I like it. It's also easy to wash. This is a baby yarn. This is a size 3, and they recommend a G hook with this one. And this is a size 5 bulky yarn. And they actually recommend the K hook with this one. And this is a bamboo, rayon from bamboo, it says, and then 80% acrylic. So yeah, you can get any kind of yarn you want. You can buy skeins like this. You can buy cakes. You can buy hanks. If you buy a hank, which is kind of like all twisted up like a donut, you know, one of those French donuts that are twisted. You'd have to untwist that and then wind it into a ball before you can use it. So I don't buy those because I'm lazy. I like the skeins. So when you start your skein, you want to pull your yarn from the middle of the skein. You can start it from the outside if you want, but it kind of rolls all over the place as you pull the yarn off. So it's a lot easier to start it from the middle. Well, it's not necessarily easy to start it from the middle. It's easy to keep going from the middle. I'll show you this one. This one actually has instructions on how to start your skein. This is this piece of yarn right here. This is the outside end that they just tucked into the middle. You pull that out first because that's not the end you're going to use. And I just tuck it under the label to keep it out of the way. And then you start from the other end, this end, and you reach into the middle at random, pull out a bunch of yarn until you only have one strand coming out. And then you find your end and crochet from there. Sometimes you will pull out like half of the skein of yarn trying to find the end. That's unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles. I personally like the Hirschner's brand a lot, and Red Heart does this too. Red Heart will often have the tail hanging out. Hirschner's has their tail hanging out like this, and they actually put a sticker on the end so it's super easy to find, and I really appreciate that. Alright, so we're going to work with this yarn, and like I said, our K hook. When you hold your hook, you can hold it this way, or you can hold it like a pencil. It's up to you. Whatever is most comfortable. So we're going to pull out some yarn. And we've kind of got two parts of our yarn here. We've got the tail, which is the end, and then our working yarn, which is the part that's attached to the skein. So we're going to start by making a slip knot. And you can either do this with your fingers or you can stick the hook in there and do it that way. I'm going to show you with the fingers because it's easier to start out with. So you're going to hold on to your tail, and with your working yarn you're going to make a loop, and you're going to stick that through there just like tying a knot. And you're going to grab the part that you pulled through, and you're going to pull on the tail. Okay? Loop it around your fingers, stick it through, and grab it, and pull your tail. One more time. go around your fingers, stick it through, or if you want to do a really big one, you can reach all the way through. And so you grabbed it, and then you pull your tail. And this is a really big loop, so we're going to pull the working yarn, make our loop smaller, and stick our hook through. And that's our slip knot. So when you want to make your slip knot tighter, you pull on your working yarn. So we're going to make our slip knot, and you don't want it really super tight. If you have it really tight like this, it's really hard to get your hook through later. If you made yours too tight, just pull on the knot and pull up on your hook. So there we go. You want to have a little bit of wiggle room in here, but not too much. Okay, so this is the hardest part of learning to crochet, is learning how to hold your yarn. Yarn needs to come over your index finger like this. This is where the tension is. That's where you're going to hook everything onto. If it's really loose and floppy, you're not going to be able to hold on to it with the hook. It's going to slide off. So you need to have some tension on here. You also need to be able to hold your work with this hand. So you're going to hold your yarn and hold your work. So really holding your yarn is kind of a real personal thing. You're just going to have to do a lot of trial and error to figure out what's going to be comfortable for you. It does need to come over your index finger at the end of the day, and you do need some fingers available to hold your work. What I like to do is I like to pinch my yarn between these two fingers because that helps me control the tension better. And I hold my work with these two. So I bring the yarn back behind. Wait, what do I do? This is so automatic, I don't even know how I do it. Okay. So it goes in front of this finger and behind this finger. So I kind of weave it in and out. So pinch, in front, behind. And then I use my middle finger and my thumb to hold my work. But you can do whatever you like. A lot of people just grab it like this. The important thing is you have fingers to hold your work with, and that your yarn comes over your index finger. So, however is comfortable for you, and it may take you quite some time to figure out how to do this effectively. So don't get discouraged, just keep at it until it's comfortable. It's one of those things that comes with time, and it'll feel more natural as you do it more. Okay, so we are going to start with our crochets. We're going to start with a chain. Pretty much everything starts with a foundation chain. So what we're going to do is a yarn over. So the yarn comes up and over your hook. Now you can do it that way by moving this hand and bringing the yarn over, or you can do it by scooping, and most crocheters will do it by scooping because it's a lot faster and a lot less wear and tear on your wrist. So by scooping, you're going to end up in the same place, but instead of putting the yarn over, you're going to scoop the hook under. So your yarn should be back here, not in front of your hook. You want your yarn behind your hook, and you're going to scoop under and then over the top. Okay? Under and over. And I'm turning my hook, I use my thumb to turn my hook over to catch that yarn, because if we keep the hook up, it's not going to catch on it. Up and over. Okay, one more time. Scoop under, up, and turn the hook over. and then we're going to slide it. See, I'm pulling up on this loop a little bit, slide it, and pull it through that loop. And we've made one chain. This is our chain here, and then we have the loop on the hook. The loop on the hook does not count as a chain, it's simply a loop. So this is a stitch. This loop on the hook, that's not a stitch. Okay, do another chain. Down underneath the yarn, up and turn over. And then I'm pulling up on this loop. I'm pulling my crochet hook up a little bit, slide it, and pull the yarn through the loop. There's our second chain. One chain, two chains, and then the loop on the hook. One more time. So I'm moving my fingers up my work, because these chains get really floppy and kind of, it's hard to work with. So the tighter you hold it up toward this loop, the easier it's going to be. Scoop under and over, pull through the loop. 3 chains. Under, over, pull through. Under, around and over, pull through. Now if you're having a hard time pulling through like this and it's really tight because you've got your chain too tight and you probably have the tension a little too tight here. So relax that finger just a little bit, pull up on that loop, and be real gentle. You can actually bring your finger in toward your work if you have too much tension, and that'll give you some slack. Okay, scoop under and around, under and around. We're getting the hang of it. Let's see, how many chains do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the loop on the hook. So we'll go for a nice even, we want to have 10 stitches. So we'll do 9. Pull up a little bit on that chain. 10. Now we have 10 chains. This is our foundation, and we're going to put our stitches into this foundation. Now if we want to end up with 10 stitches on top of this, we need to start with an extra chain. So when we do rows, we have a row, and then we can't kind of just cram things on top of the row. We have to build up. So we have to go bump up, and then we can go another row, bump up, another row, bump up, another row. So we've got our 10 chains, and we're going to start our next row with a single crochet, so we want to bump up by 1 chain. Okay, so we're going to scoop under and do 1 extra chain. This is our bumping chain. Okay, the bumping chain is not a stitch, it's just a bump. So we've got our loop on the hook, and then we've got our bumping chain. So we're going to put our first stitch into the next chain. Okay, so skip the first one, skip our bumping chain, and we're going to go into, put our hook into our first chain. And you can see the chains by the bumps on the top here. So we want to go under the first bump of our first chain. Okay, I kind of pulled our bumping chain a little bit tight. There you go. Okay, loop on the hook, bumping chain, and we'll go into our first stitch chain. Okay, put the hook under the loop. Now we're going to do a single crochet. So we're going to scoop the same as we did before, yarn over, scoop under so that the yarn is over. We're going to pull through the stitch, okay? Pull through that chain stitch. You've got 2 loops on the hook, and then we're going to yarn over again and pull through both of those loops. And that is our first single crochet. Okay, I'm going to pull this out and show you one more time. Except I pulled my bumping chain really tight. Alright, we've got our loop on the hook, we've got our bumping chain, and then our first chain stitch. We go through the chain stitch, just the top loop there, yarn over, pull through, see, I'm holding on to the loop on the hook so I don't accidentally go through it. We're going to yarn over and pull through just the chain stitch, and now we have 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through both of those loops, and we've got our first stitch. Now see, the chain is pulled really high. That is, this chain is done. We've got our stitch in this chain. So now we go to the next one. And if you need to kind of push your chains together to see where they are, that's perfectly fine. See, we can clearly see here, this is our next chain stitch. We're going to put the hook through that chain stitch. Hold on to the one that's already on the hook. Scoop your hook under and over. Pull through the stitch. 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over. Pull through both loops. Now we have 2 single crochets. Let's find our next chain right here. Hold on to your loop on the hook. So when we go through a stitch, we always go front to back. You're going to scoop under, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, and pull through both loops. And we've got 3 single crochets. Okay, next stitch, through the stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch. This is called pulling up a loop. Yarn over, pull through both loops. Through the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops. This is the reason why it's important to have kind of loose chains so that you can easily see the chains and get through the chains with your hook. So pull through the stitch. And that's also why I'm kind of tugging on this loop after I pull it through. If you keep it really tight, it's a lot harder to get through. So pull up on that loop a little bit, yarn over, pull through both loops. Through the next chain, yarn over, pull through the stitch, pull up that loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. So you've got some nice single crochets. I'll finish the row, pull through, push through, yarn over, pull through the chain, yarn over, pull through both loops, through the chain, yarn over, pull through the chain, yarn over, both loops. We're on our very last one, through the last chain, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops. And there is our row of 10 single crochets. Now these V's here, that's the top of your stitch. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the loop on your hook. So we're going to do one more row of single crochets, and we need to bump up so that we can start the next row. So we're going to do that with a chain stitch, just like our foundation chains. There's no stitch to go into, so we're just going to yarn over and pull through the loop. And that's our bump up chain. Now we're going to turn our work. If you're right-handed, you're always going to work right to left. If you are left-handed, you will always work the opposite way, left to right. You always work in the same direction. That's why we turn our work. Okay, so now we've got our loop on our hook, and we have our bump up chain. Now we're going to start our next single crochet, our next row, into this first single crochet. See the V? Here's the V right there. If you look at it from the side and you kind of pull it apart, you can see the hole where your hook needs to go. So we're going to put our hook into this hole here under the stitch, and this goes under both of these loops for the V. You see that? We've got the 2 V loops on the hook plus our original loop. Okay? This is, again, why I put my finger on this loop so I don't get confused. It also keeps it out of the way. We'll go through the stitch underneath both of those loops, and we're going to yarn over and pull through the stitch. Now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Here's our next stitch through this hole underneath both of those loops of the stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch. So we have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. Pull some more yarn out here. All right, so we've got 1 stitch, 2 stitches. Here's the next one. Underneath both of those loops, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops. And we'll do the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops. Now, if your stitches are not turning out the way mine are, it could be because you're yarning under instead of over. Scoop underneath the yarn and come over. pull through the stitch, under the yarn, and come over, pull through both loops. We'll finish this row. Remember to pull up your stitch so that it's not super tight. And this is kind of why I'm using a larger hook, is so that these stitches are nice and loose and easy to work with. Now once you get used to it, you can absolutely crochet tighter stitches. You can use a smaller hook to make tighter stitches, or you can simply just make them tighter. And then your work will turn out to be smaller with fewer visible holes in it. And we're almost to the end. Under both loops, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both, and we are at our very last stitch. Go under that stitch, under both loops. Now the last stitch, it can be a little tight sometimes, a little difficult to get under both loops, but make sure you get under both of those. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Now we have 2 rows of single crochet. Now we are going to move on to a double crochet. So a single crochet is only a single stitch high. So we only did a chain 1 to bump up to the next row. A double crochet is taller, so we need more chains to bump up. So we're going to bump up with 3 chains instead of 1. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 1 time, yarn over, pull through a 2nd time, yarn over, pull through a 3rd time. So that's 3 chains. So you can see the double crochet is a lot taller than the single crochet. So now we have our bumping chains, and we're going to turn our work. Now when we do a bumping chain for a single crochet, the bumping chain does not count as a stitch usually. But when we bump up for a double crochet, this does count as a stitch. So our first 3 chains here count as our first double crochet, which means that this first stitch right here, this stitch counts as this stitch. So we're not going to put our hook into this first single crochet underneath, because that would mean we're adding 2 stitches. We're going to skip this first stitch here, and we're going to go into this next stitch. Okay, so from the top, we're going to skip this first one, and we're going to put our hook into the second single crochet. So I'm going to put my thumb here to mark where my stitch is. To do a double crochet, we need to first yarn over before we put the hook into the stitch. I'm holding it on my hook just to keep it out of the way so I can really see where my stitch is and where I'm going. So again, skip the first stitch. We're going to hook into the second stitch under both loops, just like before. And we're going to yarn over, pull through the stitch. Now we have 3 loops on the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2 of those loops. That leaves us with 2 loops on the hook. Then we're going to yarn over again and pull through both of those loops. And now we have made our first double crochet. the double crochet is a lot taller than the single crochet. Again, into the next stitch, we're going to first yarn over, and then we're going to put our hook into this next stitch under both of those loops, yarn over, pull through the stitch, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, leaving 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both loops, and we have made 2 double crochets, and then we have our chaining bump up double crochet. So we technically have 1, 2, 3 stitches. Okay, again, yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch. And again, I'm pulling up on these loops to make them a little taller and easier to go through. Yarn over, pull through 2, and I'm pulling up on that loop. Yarn over, pull through 2. And the more you pull up on that loop when you're going through it, the easier it's going to be to slide your hook through. Yarn over, through the stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch. Need some more yarn. There's still so much yarn in here, it doesn't come out easily quite yet. Okay, so yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. See, we're getting a nice row of double crochets. Yarn over, through the stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, we'll just finish this row. 3 loops, 2 loops, and 1. Pull through the stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. And this is the last one of this row. Yarn over. When you pull through the stitch like this, it's called pulling up a loop. So if you hear other people talking about a pattern they're doing or a stitch they're doing, or reading a pattern, it will say pull up a loop, and that's what that means. Okay, pulling up a loop just means yarning over and pulling through the stitch. So we pulled up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. So now we are at the end of our row. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 double crochets. Remember, the first double crochet was that bump up chain. So to do our next row, we need another bump up chain. We're going to chain 3, yarn over, pull through 1 chain, yarn over, pull through 2 chains, yarn over, pull through 3 chains. Turn your work and skip the first stitch. yarn over, skip, go into the second stitch. And this is the same on the top as the single crochets. They're still all V's. So we're still going to go through both of those loops of that stitch. Yarn over. I need a little more tension on my yarn. Yarn over, pull through those loops of the stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. As you can see, these stitches have more space in between them than the single crochets. But we don't want to go into this space. There are some things like granny squares and other things where you do crochet into the space in between the stitches, but that's labeled specifically in the pattern. When we do single crochets, we're always going to go into the top of the stitch so that you always have something underneath your hook so it's not sliding. If it's sliding up and down like this, you're not in the stitch, you're in the space. So into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, next stitch. We're going to finish this row because I want to show you what happens when we get to the bump up chain. Okay, yarn over, into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. I need more yarn again. We are getting close here. Through the stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. And you can always pull your stitches apart a little bit if you're having trouble seeing where they are. These in particular with that chain kind of get mushed together. So if you pull that chain over, then you can see where your next stitch is. Oops, yarn over first, through the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we're at our bump up chain. Because this counts as a stitch, we need to put our last stitch of the row on top of this chain. So it can be tricky getting into the chain and even figuring out where the chains are because as you can see, they kind of get pulled out of shape a little bit. So technically, right here, these 2 tiny little loops, that's the top of the chain. They got pulled really tight. That's where you would ideally like to put your hook through, but it's awfully, awfully hard. This, however, is very easy to see. So that's where we're going to put our double crochet. Now again, you want to make sure you put it into the stitch and not in between the stitches. If you can move your hook way up and down, you're in between the stitches. So we're going to put it through here and see we've got yarn on the top and yarn underneath. That means we're in the stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop through the stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. And there we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 double crochets. It's extremely important to make sure you go through the chains of the bump up chain. If you end up going in between the chains, you're not going to have a nice straight edge. Your edges are going to be really wonky. Okay, let's do one more row of double crochets. We're going to chain up 3, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and turn our work. Skip the first stitch, yarn over into the second stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and into the third stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. Pull through the stitch. And as I'm doing this, as I'm doing the yarn over, I'm turning my hook. See, it starts kind of up and then I'm turning it over so I can catch that yarn. If you're having trouble with your yarn slipping off, try turning your hook over a little bit. And I use my thumb to turn it. Yarn over, pull through. And it can take a while sometimes to figure out exactly where to turn your hook and how much so that it doesn't slip off the yarn and doesn't catch on the ply of the yarn. The yarns, this one is plied pretty tightly. It's twisted nice and tight. Something like this has a looser ply where you can see all the different strands that they twisted together. Sometimes your hook will catch on one of the plies, and then you need to take the hook out and try again because you need to catch all of the plies of the yarn. So some yarn is twisted more tightly than others. This Hirschner's yarn is twisted really nicely. I've worked with some yarns where I am constantly catching the ply and having to do it again. Yarn over, pull through 2. Need more yarn. Through the next stitch. Pull through, pull through. And we are on the last double crochet stitch that we made. Yarn over, and now we're back to the starting chain. This was our chain 3. So in this one, you can kind of get into this first top chain here. If you can get into this top chain, excellent, that's what we really want. If you can't, it's okay to go into the second chain. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it's better to go into this top chain if you can. So here's 1 chain, 2 chains, and this is our top chain right here. We're going to go through there, and you can see underneath my hook I've got that one piece of yarn to keep me from going in between the stitches, so that I am actually in the stitch and not in between the stitches. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And there we have our little sampler. We have 2 single crochet rows and 1, 2, 3 double crochet rows. You can see this little stitch that's sticking out there. This was our bump up starting chain for this row. If you make your starting chain a little bit too loose, it'll kind of bump out like that. So you kind of want to make your starting chains a little bit tight, but you can pull on your stitches a little bit and help make that smaller. Okay, what happens if you're working on a project and you messed up? Let's say we had missed a stitch right here. Oops, there's a big hole in our work. What do we do now? Well, we can just frog our work back to where we messed up. Now, frogging means taking our stitches out. It's called frogging because you rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it. All you have to do is pull on your working yarn. And there we go. If we had missed that stitch, now we're back to where we need to be. Put your hook through the loop, and then you can put that missing stitch in and just keep right on going. Crochet is very forgiving. And it's also great because if you make a sampler and something you don't really want to keep, then you can frog the whole thing and you haven't wasted any of that yarn. You can just use this yarn for your next project. So sometimes when you get to your slip stitch at the beginning, it can be a little hard to frog it. You just have to tug. And you can use all of this yarn all over again. None of it gets wasted. Well, thanks for coming along with me on this crochet lesson. I do plan to make more art journal videos probably in the new year. The weather is still up and down and crazy, and I'm not feeling great a lot, so haven't been doing a whole lot of art, but I promise I will get back to it, and maybe I'll do some more crochet videos and different stitches. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.